Elephant engine. When the second-generation 426 cubic inch Hemi V8 debuted in 1964, Detroit had never seen anything like it. It was huge, heavy, and brutally powerful. An engine so physically imposing that racers nicknamed it the Elephant. The name fit perfectly. Everything about it was oversized. The 426 Hemi traced its roots to Chrysler's 1950s Firepower Hemi program, but this new version was built with one mission: win in NASCAR and NHRA. Engineers designed the hemispherical combustion chambers to allow huge valves and perfect airflow, producing power that small block engines could only dream of. In race, trim it easily topped 600 horsepower, and its torque curve looked like a mountain. On the track, it became legendary. Almost overnight, Richard Petty's Plymouth Belvedere crushed the 1964 Daytona 500 with a Hemi under the hood, forcing NASCAR to temporarily ban the engine for being too dominant. In drag racing, the Hemi became the foundation of the top fuel and funny car classes, and decades later, a variation of the same design still powers those 11,000 horsepower monsters. The street version arrived in 1966 with 425 horsepower on paper, though everyone knew that was conservative. In reality, it made closer to 470 horsepower straight from the showroom, and far more with simple tuning. It powered icons like the Dodge Charger RT, Plymouth GTX, and Cuda, cars that became instant collectibles. Even today, no other engine combines mythology and mechanical presence quite like the 426 Hemi. The nickname Elephant wasn't marketing hype, it was earned. It described not only the size of the cast iron block and heads, but also the unstoppable force they produced. 60 years later, whenever you hear the deep, thunderous idol of a Hemi, you still understand why they called it the Elephant. Mouse motor. When Chevrolet introduced its new small block V8 in 1955, few could have guessed it would become one of the most successful engines in history. Displacing just 265 cubic inches, it was compact, light, and mechanically simple, yet it produced a level of performance that changed American cars forever. Before long, mechanics and racers gave it a nickname that captured its spirit: the mouse motor. The nickname started as a playful contrast. The small block was nimble and light compared to Chevrolet's larger big block V8s, which would later be called rat motors. The idea came from the cartoon character Mighty Mouse. Small, fast, and surprisingly powerful, it fit perfectly. The new Chevy engine wasn't about brute force. It was about efficiency, revs, and adaptability. The first small block V8 made 162 horsepower, but its true strength was in its design. It had thin wall casting for reduced weight, a short stroke for quick revving, and a compact layout that fit in everything from sedans to Corvettes. It was simple enough for backyard mechanics to work on and strong enough to power race cars. Over the decades, the mouse motor evolved constantly. By the late 1960s, it had grown into the 327 and 350 cubic inch versions, powering everything from Camaros and Novas to Corvettes and pickup trucks. Tuners and hot rodders loved it because it was nearly indestructible and endlessly modifiable. It became the foundation of the American V8 swap, a go-to power plant for racers, restorers, and custom builders alike. Even today, nearly 70 years after its debut, the small block V8's influence is everywhere. The basic architecture survived through generations of LS and LT engines, proving how right Chevrolet got it the first time. The mouse motor earned its name not from size alone, but from attitude. A small, determined engine that punched far above its weight and rewrote what American performance could be. Rat motor. If Chevrolet's small block was the mouse, its big brother became the rat. The nickname emerged naturally in the 1960s, as racers looked for a way to describe the new line of massive Chevrolet V8s that dwarfed the compact mouse motor in both size and appetite. The rat motor was bigger, louder, and meaner. Everything about it was designed for brute strength. The story began with the 396 cubic inch engine in 1965, which quickly evolved into the 427 and the legendary 454. These engines were physically enormous, featuring wide cylinder heads, tall deck heights, and deep-skirted blocks capable of handling immense power. The design focused on airflow and torque. Where the small block revved freely, the big block was all about raw, low-end force. The rat motor found its home in muscle cars built for domination: Chevelles, Camaros, Novas, and Corvettes that ruled both the streets and drag strips. In 1970, the 454 LS6 engine set the standard for factory muscle, rated at 450 horsepower and over 500 pound-feet of torque. Though real-world numbers were even higher, it was a power plant that could twist drive shafts and shred tires with ease. In racing, the Rat became a staple of NHRA Superstock and Pro Stock, while marine racers and truck builders loved its durability and torque curve. Its sheer mass was both its strength and its curse. The engine was heavy, but for those chasing horsepower, that didn't matter. The nickname Rat captured its personality, not elegant or refined, but cunning, relentless, and hard to kill. Even decades later, the big block Chevy remains one of the most versatile and respected performance platforms in American history. Builders still use them for drag racing, hot rods, and classic restorations. The sound of a Rat motor at full throttle, deep, thunderous, and unrestrained, is unmistakable. It's the heavyweight of the Chevrolet engine family, a mechanical predator that has never truly gone extinct. Flathead. Few engines shaped American car culture like Ford's Flathead V8. Introduced in 1932, it brought 8-cylinder power to the masses at an affordable price, changing performance forever. Its nickname, Flathead or Flatty, came from its unique design. The cylinder heads were literally flat because all the valves sat inside the block, not in the head. That simple layout made it revolutionary. Most engines of the time used complex overhead valve systems that were expensive to build and maintain. Ford's Flathead design was cheap to produce, easy to service, and compact enough to fit in everything from sedans to trucks. Yet it still delivered smooth, reliable torque that made ordinary cars feel powerful. At just 221 cubic inches in its first version, it made 65 horsepower, which was impressive for the early 1930s. By the late 1940s, displacement and output grew. The 239 cubic inch version made 100 horsepower, and hot rodders quickly learned how to coax far more out of it. That's when the Flathead became a legend. After World War II, thousands of returning soldiers built stripped-down cars using Flathead Fords. They bored the blocks, added multiple carburetors, and bolted on high-compression heads from brands like Edelbrock and Offenhauser. The result was the birth of the American hot rod movement. Every dry lake racer in California wanted one. The sound of a tuned Flathead, with its deep burble and rhythmic lope, became the soundtrack of the 1940s and 50s street scene. Its design eventually reached its limits. It couldn't flow enough air to compete with modern overhead valve engines. But by then, the Flathead had already secured its place in history. Flathead wasn't just a technical nickname. It became a symbol of early performance culture. The Flatty represented innovation, accessibility, and the raw, mechanical heart of American speed. 90 years later, it's still celebrated not for perfection, but for starting it all. Nailhead. When Buick introduced its first overhead valve V8 in 1953, no one could have predicted that its odd design would earn one of the most enduring nicknames in engine history, the Nailhead. The name came from the small, vertical valves in its cylinder heads that resembled nails driven straight into a board. These narrow valves were the key to its unique design and also the reason for its distinctive look and power delivery. At a time when Detroit's V8s were growing wider and more complex, Buick engineers took a different approach. They built an engine with a compact combustion chamber and nearly vertical valve angles, creating a tall, narrow cylinder head. This allowed for strong, even airflow and excellent low-end torque. Though it limited top-end breathing, the result was an engine that pulled hard off idle and delivered effortless acceleration, perfect for the heavy luxury cars Buick specialized in. Early versions displaced 322 cubic inches and produced 188 horsepower, impressive numbers for the early 1950s. Over the years, Buick increased the size to 364, 401, and finally 425 cubic inches by 1966. Torque figures grew just as fast, with later versions producing over 465 pound-feet, more than many muscle cars that came after. It became a favorite among hot rodders who valued torque and durability, even if the heads didn't flow like a race motor's. The Nailhead powered some of Buick's most memorable models, including the Wildcat, Riviera, and Electra. It also made its way into dragsters and custom builds, thanks to its distinctive tall valve covers and unique, almost sculptural look. Builders loved how it stood out in an engine bay. By 1967, Buick replaced it with a new, more conventional V8. But the legend of the Nailhead never faded. It represented a clever, unconventional approach to power, a design that turned a limitation into a trademark. Today, when enthusiasts talk about torque-rich American engines, the Nailhead still earns respect for doing things its own way and making it work beautifully. Rocket engine. In 1949, Oldsmobile changed the direction of post-war performance with a single word, rocket. That year, the company introduced its new 303 cubic inch overhead valve V8, officially named the Rocket engine, a name that perfectly captured the optimism of the early space age and the explosive power it delivered. Before the Rocket, most American engines were flatheads with modest efficiency and limited breathing. Oldsmobile's new design used overhead valves and high compression, allowing better airflow and more complete combustion. With 135 horsepower and 283 pound-feet of torque, it instantly made Oldsmobile's mid-size 88 coupe one of the quickest cars on American roads. drivers suddenly had real performance, and the Rocket 88 became both a sales success and a cultural symbol, even inspiring one of the first rock and roll songs, Rocket 88, in 1951. The Rocket engine wasn't just about power, it was about innovation. It represented the start of Detroit's horsepower race, setting the stage for the muscle car era that would come a decade later. Oldsmobile continued refining the design throughout the 1950s, increasing displacement to 324, 371, and eventually 394 cubic inches. Each version carried the same identity: smooth, durable, and fast. By the early 1960s, rocket power had become a marketing cornerstone for Oldsmobile. The name appeared on air cleaners, valve covers, and fender badges, reminding buyers that their car shared DNA with the engine that started the performance revolution. Even when horsepower ratings climbed into the 400s during the muscle era, Oldsmobile kept the Rocket name alive across engines like the 400, 425, and 455. The Rocket's influence extended far beyond the brand. It proved that American automakers could build engines that were powerful, reliable, and refined. Every high-performance V8 that followed, from Chevrolet's small block to Chrysler's Hemi, owed a debt to the Rocket's forward-thinking design. Today, the Oldsmobile Rocket remains one of the most significant engines in American history. It wasn't just a marketing term, it was a statement of intent. In 1949, Oldsmobile promised to build the future, and for one glorious moment, they did. Boss engine. The Ford Boss 302 is one of those engines whose name fits its personality perfectly. Built for the 1969 and 1970 Trans Am racing seasons, the Boss 302 was designed to beat Chevrolet's Z28 Camaro on the track and on the street. Its nickname, Boss, came directly from Ford designer Larry Shinoda, who used the word both as 1960s slang for cool and as a nod to his boss at the time, Ford President Bunky Knudsen. The Boss 302 was a purpose-built racing engine disguised as a street motor. It combined a high-revving 302 cubic inch small block Windsor bottom end with massive Cleveland-style cylinder heads that flowed air like a big block. The result was an engine that loved to spin, officially rated at 290 horsepower, but closer to 350 in reality. Its 8,000 revolutions per minute capability and razor-sharp throttle response made it a favorite among enthusiasts who valued handling and precision over brute force. Everything about the Boss 302 was engineered with racing in mind. The forged crankshaft and connecting rods could handle extended high revolutions per minute punishment, while a solid lifter camshaft and 780 cubic feet per minute Holley carburetor kept the engine breathing freely. On the street, it felt raw and mechanical, demanding attention with every shift. On the track, it was nearly unstoppable. In the Trans Am series, cars powered by the Boss 302 engine helped Parnelli Jones and the Budmore Racing Team capture the 1970 championship against fierce competition from Chevrolet and AMC. That victory cemented its legacy. Production ended after 1970, but the Boss 302 name returned briefly in 2012 with a modern 5.0-liter version, another tribute to precision and balance over sheer displacement. The Boss nickname wasn't marketing fluff, it was earned. It represented a perfect mix of engineering excellence, competition pedigree, and rebellious cool. More than 50 years later, the Boss 302 still stands as one of Ford's finest small blocks, a race engine built with the swagger its name implies. Cobra Jet. When Ford introduced the 428 Cobra Jet in 1968, it instantly became one of the most feared engines of the muscle car era. The name Cobra Jet combined two symbols of speed: the quick-striking Cobra snake from Carroll Shelby's performance cars, and the Jet, representing sheer thrust and modern power. Together, the name captured everything Ford wanted this engine to be: fast, aggressive, and unstoppable. The Cobra Jet was born out of necessity. By the late 1960s, Ford needed a true performance engine to compete with the big block Chevrolets and Mopars dominating the drag strip. Engineers took the existing 428 Police Interceptor engine and upgraded it with larger intake valves, revised heads, and a high-flow Holley 735 cubic feet per minute carburetor mounted on an aluminum intake. Officially rated at 335 horsepower, real output was closer to 410. The debut was perfectly timed. Ford unveiled the engine in a fleet of specially prepared Mustangs at the 1968 NHRA Winter Nationals. Those cars shocked the racing world, winning their class and proving that Ford was back in the horsepower war. From that moment, Cobra Jet meant victory. The 428 Cobra Jet was soon joined by the 429 Cobra Jet in 1969, an even more advanced design featuring the new Thunderjet big block architecture. Both engines offered massive torque and relentless acceleration. The Super Cobra Jet variant, fitted with stronger internals and an external oil cooler, became a favorite among serious racers. Cobra Jet engines powered some of the most iconic Fords ever built: Mustangs, Torinos, and Cougars that dominated both streets and strips. The combination of brute strength and elegant engineering made them legends of Detroit performance. The Cobra Jet name has survived for decades, returning on modern Mustangs as a symbol of Ford's drag racing heritage. It represents a perfect blend of American muscle and precision, an engine family that truly lived up to its name by striking fast and hitting hard. Ram Air. By the late 1960s, Pontiac had built a reputation as GM's rebel division, and the Ram Air 4th engine cemented that image. Introduced in 1969, the 400 cubic inch V8 represented the peak of Pontiac's factory performance engineering, and its Ram Air nickname described its most distinctive feature: a functional cold air induction system that forced outside air directly into the carburetor for more power at high speeds. The concept wasn't new, but Pontiac perfected it. The Ram Air system used scoops integrated into the hood to channel cooler, denser air through a series of ducts and flaps straight into the engine. At wide open throttle, this design helped increase both horsepower and throttle response, giving the car an extra kick exactly when it was needed most. Under the hood, the Ram Air 4th was more than just an airflow gimmick. It featured round port cylinder heads, forged pistons, a high-lift camshaft, and a cast aluminum intake manifold. Officially rated at 370 horsepower, real-world numbers were well north of that, closer to 410. The engine's high-revving nature and deep, mechanical growl made it a favorite among drag racers and street warriors alike. Pontiac offered the Ram Air 4th in cars like the GTO, Firebird, and Judge, all of which quickly became icons of the muscle era. These cars weren't just fast, they looked the part, with aggressive hood scoops that made sure everyone knew there was something serious underneath. The Ram Air name became a badge of honor across multiple Pontiac engines, from the earlier Ram Air 1st and 2nd versions to the ultimate Ram Air 4th. Later iterations, like the Ram Air 5th and the 1990s revival on the Firebird Trans Am, kept the legend alive. The Ram Air 4th wasn't just a marketing phrase, it was proof that real engineering and performance could coexist in a street car. It symbolized Pontiac's boldness during Detroit's Golden Horsepower Wars, a time when forcing air into an engine wasn't just physics, it was attitude. Terminator. When Ford's special vehicle team unveiled the 2003 to 2004 Mustang Cobra, it redefined what a factory-built muscle car could do. Its engine, a supercharged 4.6-liter DOHC V8, earned the fearsome nickname Terminator. The name came from SVT engineer John Coletti, who wanted this Cobra to destroy the competition, and it did exactly that. The Terminator engine was based on Ford's modular 4.6-liter architecture, but built to an entirely different standard. It used a cast iron block instead of aluminum, forged pistons, stronger connecting rods, and a forged crankshaft. Sitting on top was an Eaton M112 Roots-type supercharger that delivered 8 pound-force per square inch of boost. Officially rated at 390 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque, the numbers were famously underrated. In reality, most cars made closer to 420 horsepower right off the showroom floor. What made the Terminator special wasn't just its raw output, but how effortlessly it handled power. The engine could take massive abuse, often surviving double its stock boost levels with only minor upgrades. Tuners quickly found they could extract 500, 600, even 700 horsepower while retaining stock internals, something unheard of at the time. Paired with a Tremec T56 6-speed manual and an independent rear suspension, the Terminator Cobra was both brutal and composed. It launched like a cannon, yet could carve corners with surprising precision. It wasn't subtle, either. The whine of the supercharger was instantly recognizable, a mechanical scream that announced its arrival long before the car appeared. Ford only built the Terminator Cobra for 2 years, but its impact has lasted decades. It became a benchmark for modern performance Mustangs and laid the groundwork for Ford's later supercharged monsters like the GT500. The nickname Terminator captured its essence perfectly: cold, mechanical, unstoppable. It was engineered to end the reign of every rival muscle car on the road, and for a brief, glorious moment, it did exactly that. Firepower. Before the Elephant 426, Hemi ruled the 1960s. Chrysler had already revolutionized engine design with the original Firepower Hemi. Introduced in 1951, it was the first generation of Chrysler's hemispherical combustion chamber V8s, a design that would change American performance forever. The company officially named it the Firepower to highlight both its cutting-edge technology and its fierce performance. The name was more than marketing. Compared to the flathead and wedge-head engines of the time, the Firepower's hemispherical chamber allowed for more efficient air-fuel mixing and better flame travel, producing more power with less fuel. It was an engineering breakthrough rooted in wartime aircraft research, where Chrysler engineers had studied high-compression combustion for fighter engines. The first version displaced 331 cubic inches and produced 180 horsepower, huge numbers for the early 1950s. In Chrysler's New Yorker and Imperial models, it offered effortless acceleration and smooth refinement. It was so advanced that it soon found its way into race cars, boats, and even aircraft applications. Over the years, the firepower evolved into larger displacements, including 354 and 392 cubic inches, each one stronger and more capable than the last. The 392 firepower in particular became a legend among early drag racers. Its rugged bottom end and efficient head design made it perfect for high-compression, supercharged setups. On the Strip, these engines dominated top fuel dragsters well into the 1960s, long after Chrysler stopped producing them. The firepower's influence extended beyond Chrysler itself. It established the Hemi as an American icon, a symbol of engineering excellence and sheer performance potential. The basic principles behind its design would resurface a decade later in the 426 Hemi, which carried the same DNA into NASCAR and NHRA dominance. The firepower name captured what Chrysler achieved with this engine. Controlled combustion turned into mechanical force, fire turned into motion. It was powerful, elegant, and decades ahead of its time, the spark that ignited the Hemi legend. Six-pack. When Dodge and Plymouth unveiled the 446-pack in 1969, they created one of the most instantly recognizable big block engines of the muscle car era. The nickname six-pack referred to its induction system, three two-barrel Holley carburetors feeding a single 440 cubic inch V8. Plymouth marketed the same setup as the 6BBL, but Dodge's six-pack label became the one everyone remembered. It captured exactly what the engine delivered, a hard-hitting triple shot of power. The design was simple but devastatingly effective. At low speeds, only the center carburetor operated, providing smooth drivability. Press deeper on the throttle, and vacuum secondaries opened the outer carbs, flooding the intake with fuel and air. The result was an immediate surge of torque that felt almost violent. Officially rated at 390 horsepower, the six-pack's real output was closer to 425, and its 490 pound-feet of torque made it one of the quickest production engines of its time. The 446-pack powered some of Mopar's most legendary cars, the Dodge Super Bee, Coronet RT, Charger RT, and Plymouth Roadrunner. When paired with lightweight A12 packages and 4.10 gears, these cars were capable of mid-13-second quarter-mile times straight off the showroom floor, numbers that rivaled the mighty 426 Hemi but for a fraction of the price. Drag racers loved it because it was easy to tune and tough to break. The forged bottom end and high-flow heads made it nearly indestructible, and the triple carb setup gave backyard mechanics an instant path to race-ready performance. The sound of all three carbs opening at full throttle, a deep roar followed by a sharp mechanical howl, became a signature of late 60 seconds Detroit power. By 1971, tightening emission standards ended its production run, but the six-pack name never faded. It symbolized the era when raw engineering and a bit of tuning creativity could transform a heavy street car into a track terror. More than 50 years later, the 446-pack remains one of the most beloved big blocks ever built, a perfect mix of simplicity, strength, and old-school American excess. Voodoo. When Ford unveiled the Shelby GT 350 in 2015, the spotlight fell squarely on its heart, the 5.2-liter Voodoo V8. The nickname fit perfectly. This engine felt like black magic, combining exotic European engineering with unmistakable American muscle. It was the first production flat-plane crank V8 ever built by Ford, and it completely redefined what a Mustang could be. Traditional crossplane V8s, known for their deep, uneven rumble, trade smoothness for torque. The Voodoo flipped that formula. Its flat-plane crankshaft allowed opposing pistons to fire in a perfectly balanced sequence, drastically improving high revolutions per minute breathing and throttle response. The result was an engine that revved to an astronomical 8,250 revolutions per minute and sounded more like a Ferrari than a Ford. At 526 horsepower and 429 pound-feet of torque, the Voodoo wasn't the most powerful Mustang engine ever built, but it might be the most engaging. Its naturally aspirated setup gave it razor-sharp throttle control and instant response, while the lightweight internals and individual throttle bodies made it feel alive at every revolutions per minute. The hand-built nature of the engine added to its mystique. Each one was assembled by a single technician at Ford's Romeo engine plant. The sound was unforgettable. The Voodoo's wail at full throttle was a blend of precision and fury, a high-pitched shriek that set it apart from every muscle car around it. Paired with a Tremec 6-speed manual and a chassis built for balance, the GT350 was as close to a track car as Ford had ever sold for the street. The Voodoo nickname captured the engine's character perfectly, something mysterious and mesmerizing that felt impossible to fully explain. It was a piece of engineering sorcery, blending refinement and rawness in equal measure. Even after production ended in 2020, the Voodoo remains one of Ford's most celebrated creations, proof that true magic can still come from a naturally aspirated V8. Godzilla. When Ford announced its new 7.3-liter V8 for the 2020 Super Duty lineup, the name that engineers gave it internally said it all. Godzilla. It was the perfect nickname for a massive iron block pushrod engine in an era dominated by downsized, turbocharged motors. Like its cinematic namesake, this engine was a monster, big, unstoppable, and surprisingly sophisticated beneath its brute strength. The Godzilla was Ford's first new pushrod V8 design in decades, replacing the modular 6.8-liter V10 and slotting alongside the company's modern overhead cam engines. At 445 cubic inches, it was built with durability and serviceability in mind. A cast-iron block, forged steel crankshaft, and aluminum heads designed to withstand endless miles of hard use. But this was no simple truck motor. The architecture was optimized for efficiency and balance, with a short stroke, modern oiling system, and advanced cylinder head design that gave it excellent breathing across the revolutions per minute range. From the factory, the Godzilla produced 430 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. It delivered that power smoothly and instantly, making heavy-duty trucks feel effortless under load. But the real surprise came when hot rodders got their hands on it. The engine's simplicity and strength made it a natural for performance builds, and tuners quickly found it could handle over 1,000 horsepower with minimal internal upgrades. Its compact pushrod layout made it ideal for engine swaps, and soon, Godzilla-powered Mustangs and F-100s began appearing at drag strips across the country. What made the nickname stick wasn't just size, but attitude. The 7.3 Godzilla represented a deliberate return to old-school American muscle principles: big displacement, mechanical simplicity, and torque everywhere. Yet it did it with modern reliability and refinement. In a world of complex turbo systems and hybrid drivetrains, the Godzilla stands as a reminder that there's still nothing quite like cubic inches and raw mechanical power. It's Ford's modern tribute to the kind of engines that built Detroit's legend: massive, indestructible, and ready to roar. Leaning Tower of Power. Among the most unique and enduring engines in Detroit's history, Chrysler's Slant 6 earned its nickname Leaning Tower of Power not just for its angled layout, but for its toughness and surprising performance. Introduced in 1960, the inline six featured a distinctive 30-degree tilt to the right, an unconventional design that became one of Chrysler's most successful engineering experiments. The slanted configuration wasn't just for looks. Tilting the block allowed engineers to design a lower, wider intake manifold with longer runners, improving airflow and fuel distribution. It also let Chrysler fit a taller engine into lower car hoods without raising the vehicle's profile, a key advantage in the sleek styling trends of the early 60s. The result was a power plant that was compact, efficient, and torquey, the perfect workhorse for sedans, pickups, and even muscle car variants. Available in displacements of 170, 190, 8, and 225 cubic inches, the Slant 6 wasn't a high-revving screamer, but it was nearly indestructible. The 225 version in particular became legendary for its reliability. It could run on poor fuel, survive neglect, and even keep running with little or no oil pressure, a fact proven in countless torture tests and real-world abuse. Taxi fleets, farmers, and daily drivers swore by it. The Leaning Tower of Power nickname was originally a lighthearted joke, comparing its tilt to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but the name stuck because it fit so perfectly. The engine was dependable, yet oddly charismatic, a humble design that punched far above its weight. By the mid-1980s, the Slant 6 was phased out in favor of smaller, more modern engines, but its reputation never faded. Today, enthusiasts still celebrate it for its simplicity, longevity, and the unmistakable offbeat look under the hood. The Chrysler Slant 6 didn't win races or headline muscle car ads, but it earned something more valuable: the trust of millions. It proved that engineering cleverness and durability could turn an economy engine into a legend. Golden Commando. In 1958, Plymouth joined Detroit's escalating horsepower race with one of the most distinctive engines of the decade, the Golden Commando. The name itself reflected the era's fascination with power and prestige. Golden hinted at luxury and performance, while Commando suggested military precision and authority. Together, they defined an engine designed to make Plymouth stand out among its flashier corporate cousins. The Golden Commando was a 350 cubic inch V8 that sat at the top of Plymouth's lineup. It featured dual 4-barrel carburetors mounted on an aluminum intake manifold, high compression pistons, and a performance-tuned camshaft. The result was 305 horsepower, an impressive figure for a mid-priced car in the late 1950s. Buyers could also opt for a milder, single, 4-barrel version producing 295 horsepower. But the dual-quad setup was the one enthusiasts remembered. Visually, Plymouth leaned into the theme. Valve covers and air cleaners were finished in gold, and the engine's badging proudly displayed the Golden Commando name. Underneath the glamour, the engine shared Chrysler's robust block architecture, giving it strength and reliability that matched its looks. It powered models like the Fury, Belvedere, and Sport Suburban, turning ordinary family cars into stylish, high-speed cruisers. The timing of its release, however, was both perfect and short-lived. The late 1950s marked the height of America's obsession with style and performance, but it also came just before a nationwide recession and growing concerns over fuel economy. By 1959, Plymouth had retired the Golden Commando name in favor of new branding, and the 350 engine was replaced by larger 361 and 383 cubic inch variants. Despite its brief run, the Golden Commando left a lasting impression. It represented a moment when Plymouth flexed its engineering muscle and dared to match the elegance of Chrysler and the aggression of Dodge. The name captured the spirit of 1950s optimism, fast, bold, and gleaming with promise, an era when gold paint and big horsepower defined what premium performance really meant. Super Duty. When Pontiac unveiled the Super Duty 455 in 1973, it wasn't just releasing another big block engine, it was launching a defiant swan song for American muscle. By the early 70s, emissions laws, fuel crises, and insurance rates were choking high performance out of Detroit. Most car makers were detuning engines and softening their image. Pontiac, true to its rebellious spirit, decided to go the opposite direction. The Super Duty name dated back to the early 1960s, when Pontiac's racing division built limited-run, track-ready V8s. The SD455 carried that legacy forward. Officially rated at 290 net horsepower, the numbers were deliberately understated. In truth, the engine produced well over 370 gross horsepower, nearly on par with the legendary Ram Air 4th from just a few years earlier. What made the SD455 special was its construction. It wasn't just a bored-out 455, it was built like a race motor. It featured reinforced main webs, forged connecting rods, a high-flow oiling system, and cylinder heads designed for exceptional breathing. Even the block casting and metallurgy were unique, making it capable of handling sustained high revolutions per minute that would destroy a standard 455. Only a handful of cars received it, primarily the 1973 and 1974 Firebird Formula and Trans Am. In an era when nearly every manufacturer had abandoned high performance, these cars stood alone as genuine muscle machines. Car and Driver called the SD455 the last of the great ones, and they weren't wrong. Despite its potential, the Super Duty program was short-lived. Stricter emissions rules and corporate pressure ended production after just 2 years, but its legend only grew. Today, the SD455 is one of the most sought-after engines of its time, a rare example of a manufacturer refusing to compromise on performance. The Super Duty name perfectly captured its essence, a heavy-duty, no-apologies engine built for the kind of power that most companies had already declared extinct. It was Pontiac's final stand, and it went out swinging. Predator. When Ford launched the 2020 Shelby GT500, it needed an engine that could surpass everything that came before it. The result was the 5.2-liter Predator V8, a fittingly fierce name for the most powerful production engine Ford had ever built. The nickname reflected both its nature and intent, a mechanical hunter designed to dominate any rival in its path. The Predator was a supercharged evolution of the Voodoo engine found in the Shelby GT350. Ford's engineers took that naturally aspirated masterpiece and transformed it into a forced induction monster. Gone was the Voodoo's flat plane crank, replaced with a stronger cross-plane design to handle immense boost from a 2.65-liter Eaton TVS supercharger. The result was staggering: 760 horsepower and 625 pound-feet of torque, all from a factory-sealed package built with the precision of a race motor. Internally, the Predator used forged pistons and connecting rods, strengthened cylinder liners, and an upgraded cooling system to handle the massive thermal loads of supercharging. Despite its brute strength, it was remarkably refined. Power delivery was instant yet controllable, and the engine paired seamlessly with a Tremex 7-speed dual-clutch transmission that shifted faster than any manual could dream of. What truly made the Predator special, though, was its dual personality. At low revolutions per minute, it was docile enough for daily driving, but press the throttle, and the supercharger's scream filled the cabin, unleashing acceleration that bordered on violent. It could rip through a quarter mile in the low 10-second range, faster than most supercars costing triple its price. Beyond the GT500, Ford adapted the Predator for the 2023 F-150 Raptor R, proving that its ferocity wasn't limited to pavement. In either application, the name Predator captured its essence: relentless, unstoppable, and engineered to dominate. In an era moving toward downsized engines and electric drivetrains, the Predator stands as Ford's final, glorious roar, a last great expression of unrestrained, supercharged American power. Hurricane. In 2022, Stellantis introduced a brand new twin-turbocharged inline-six that revived a historic name, the Hurricane. The badge was a nod to the old Willys Hurricane four-cylinder that powered early Jeeps, but it also reflected the new engine's purpose, a modern storm of power and efficiency meant to replace aging V8s across the company's lineup. The Hurricane is a 3.0-liter inline-six built under Stellantis' global medium engine program. It uses an aluminum block, dual overhead cams, and direct fuel injection. But what sets it apart is its twin-turbo setup. Two small turbos feed the cylinders evenly, eliminating lag and delivering a smooth, linear surge of power. In its standard form, the engine produces 420 horsepower and 468 pound-feet of torque. In high-output trim, those numbers climb to 540 horsepower and 521 pound-feet. Impressive figures for an engine nearly half the size of the old Hemi. Engineers focused on both performance and efficiency. The long inline layout provides natural balance and excellent cooling, while the twin turbos and advanced electronic wastegates ensure consistent boost without sacrificing reliability. A forged crankshaft, oil-cooled pistons, and integrated water-to-air intercoolers make the Hurricane as tough as it is sophisticated. The engine debuted in Jeep's Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer models, where it replaced the 5.7 and 6.4-liter Hemis. Despite the smaller displacement, it delivered quicker acceleration, better towing capability, and significantly improved fuel economy. For Stellantis, it marked a strategic shift, a move away from raw cubic inches toward modern forced induction performance. The Hurricane name captures that evolution perfectly. It evokes force and motion, a blend of controlled chaos and unstoppable power. Where the old Willys Hurricane engine helped America conquer rugged terrain, the new one is built to conquer emission standards and modern expectations without giving up the muscle car spirit. In many ways, this engine symbolizes the new era of American performance. Smaller, smarter, but still ferociously powerful. The Hurricane proves that the storm isn't over for internal combustion. It's simply evolved. Northstar. In the early 1990s, Cadillac needed a technological statement, something to prove that American luxury could compete with Europe's finest. The answer arrived in 1993 with the Northstar V8, a dual overhead cam, all-aluminum engine that was as advanced as anything from Mercedes, BMW, or Jaguar. The name Northstar was chosen deliberately, a symbol of guidance, precision, and leadership, the engine that would help Cadillac find its way back to the top. The first Northstar was a 4.6-liter, 32-valve V8, producing 295 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque. It was smooth, quiet, and willing to rev to 6,500 revolutions per minute, a stark contrast to the pushrod V8s that had powered Cadillacs for decades. With aluminum construction, coil-on plug ignition, and a sophisticated engine management system, it represented the most ambitious engineering program General Motors had undertaken for a luxury powertrain. One of its standout features was the limp home mode, a safeguard that allowed the engine to run without coolant for up to 50 miles. By alternately shutting down cylinder banks to reduce heat, the Northstar could save the driver from catastrophic engine failure, an unheard-of innovation in the early 90 seconds. The engine debuted in the 1993 Alente and Eldorado, then spread across the Seville, STS, and DeVille lineup. In those cars, it transformed Cadillac's image from soft and outdated to modern and performance-oriented. Later variants ranged from 4.0 to 4.4 liters, with supercharged versions delivering up to 469 horsepower in the XLR-V and STS-V. But the Northstar wasn't without flaws. Its complex design made repairs expensive, and issues like head gasket failures tarnished its reputation over time. Yet its legacy endures as one of the last great attempts to blend American comfort with European precision. The Northstar name captured exactly what Cadillac hoped to project: direction, ambition, and technical brilliance. It was the shining point that guided the brand through an era of reinvention, reminding the world that Detroit could still build engines worthy of the global stage.